During a raging typhoon, I intercepted my guy from darting beneath a billboard to rescue his first flame. In the next split second, the billboard came crashing down, pinning the girl beneath it. I couldn't evade the shattered glass from the broken window in time, leaving a permanent mark across my face. The girl ended up with both arms fractured, and her dreams of becoming a pianist were crushed. Devastated, she took a leap from a high-rise building. As for me, that scar on my face stayed forever. Fast forward 2 years, my boyfriend popped the question, and I was all in. But during our honeymoon, he shoved me off a cliff. As I was fading, he whispered in my ear, "If you hadn't stopped me, Emily wouldn't have died. You got what you deserved." Overcome with bitter resentment, I passed away. Then I found myself back on that stormy day. The wind was so fierce I could barely keep my footing. The sounds of buildings collapsing were everywhere. I was gripping an arm tightly. It was Jake, my boyfriend. Not too far off, a girl in a white dress was struggling under a street lamp, screaming for help. Recognizing the scene, it hit me. I was reborn in my previous life. Before the typhoon hit, I had stocked up on supplies at home, waiting for Jake to come back from working overtime. When the storm hit, I couldn't reach Jake by phone and started to freak out, so I went downstairs. But then I saw something that left me speechless. He was leaning against the wall, calling out to Emily. Emily was his first love. I thought she had moved abroad after their breakup. What was she doing here? Emily was clinging to a lamppost, her slender frame swaying in the wind like a delicate flower about to be crushed. Later I discovered that Jake wasn't working late. He was picking up Emily, who had just returned. He wanted to find her a place to stay, but the typhoon hit too suddenly. Hotels were shut down, and Emily had nowhere to go. Jake had to bring her to our place. As soon as they reached downstairs, a gust of wind blew Emily away. She barely held onto the lamppost. Seeing the sign above teetering to fall, Jake was desperate to save her. At that moment, I dashed out and instinctively blocked him, worried he'd get hurt. That tiny delay made the sign collapse, crushing Emily. I couldn't dodge the falling glass shards from the shattered window above, slicing my face from eyebrow to jaw. Through the intense pain, with blood streaming down my face, I watched Jake frantically yell Emily's name. The typhoon caused chaos, destroying property and injuring many. Emily was the worst hit. The falling billboard shattered her hands. They had to amputate them. For a pianist, this was the end of her career. A month later, utterly despondent, she jumped off a building. The day she died, I was concerned about Jake, but he seemed chill, saying, "Life and death are fate, and there's nothing to be done." I sensed something was off but trusted him and didn't dig deeper. Until 2 years later, when he pushed me off a cliff. I broke countless bones, my body racked with pain, bleeding everywhere, unable to move. As I lay dying, Jake stood over me with a coldness I'd never seen before. "If you hadn't stopped me, Emily wouldn't have died." She must have felt so hopeless back then. Now it's your turn to feel that. You got what you deserve. Waking from the memory, I heard glass shattering above and saw the sign above Emily swaying dangerously. Jake was shouting her name. I suddenly released Jake's hand as he rushed towards his first love. I turned and ran to safety. The sounds of glass breaking and the sign falling mixed with screams behind me. I sped up, not looking back. It wasn't until the typhoon subsided and people began to come downstairs that I nonchalantly called for an ambulance. Because Jake risked his life to save her, Emily only sustained minor injuries. But Jake ended up with a broken spine and nerve damage. He could never stand again. While Jake was out cold, I sat by his bed, reflecting on our past. We worked at the same theater. He was tall, handsome, and a talented star performer. I was a stage planner. We were just co-workers until he fell ill during a show and passed out. Everyone else was busy, so I took him to the hospital and looked after him for a few days. After that, we grew closer, occasionally chatting outside of work. One day, he suddenly confessed to me. He said I was gentle and caring, someone easy to like. Based on what I'd seen, he seemed cool. I had a bit of a crush too, so I agreed. A year into dating, I was having dinner with his friends. I excused myself to hit the bathroom, and when I came back, I overheard them talking about a girl named Emily. Emily was Jake's ex and first love. They met at the same university, both in the arts. Jake in dance, Emily in piano. They were a perfect match until Emily went to France for her career and cut off contact, leading to their breakup. Jake confessed to me to move past her. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hurt. I figured that even if he was still hung up on this relationship, he's my boyfriend now. As long as I treated him right, he'd eventually move on from Emily. But looking back at how things played out in my past life, I really overestimated myself. Suddenly, a voice next to me snapped me out of my thoughts. I turned my head and looked at the bed beside mine. The guy there was also injured in the typhoon, but it was just a minor injury, a broken ankle. He had one leg in a sling but seemed pretty upbeat, holding his phone up to show off his foot on camera. Guys, can you believe it? I almost died in this typhoon. It hit me. Emily, who lost her hand in my past life, was in this room too. And this guy was on the next bed. He's a low-tier streamer, always online, making a big deal out of his broken ankle. After Emily's tragic jump, he even streamed the whole thing, milking it for attention. The guy has no limits. I pulled up his stream. There weren't many viewers, just a handful of random comments. I smirked. Just showing your broken foot ain't going to draw crowds. Let me help you with that. I immediately started crying, resting my head on Jake's bed and sobbing softly. My crying caught the guy next door's attention, and he quickly pointed his phone towards me. Hey, what's wrong, girl? Why are you crying? My boyfriend, he's never going to walk again because he saved someone. Wow, your boyfriend's a hero. I wept, sniffling. He was working overtime and came home during the typhoon. I went downstairs to meet him and saw him risking everything to save someone. The guy next door paused suddenly, remembering something. Oh, I remember. He was brought in with a girl too. He got hurt saving her, right? I think she's in the room next door, he said, eyes lighting up with curiosity. So what's the deal between your boyfriend and that girl? I clenched my skirt, lowered my head, bit my lip, and let the tears flow silently. He caught the hint, covered his mouth, and whispered to his audience. Guys, I think I stumbled onto some juicy gossip here. With my head down, he couldn't see my silent smirk. Hero saving a damsel storylines always grab the public's attention, and once there's news like this, it catches fire fast. Internet sleuths are relentless, and they'll soon dig up the truth about the hero and the damsel. By then, their actual relationship would be out in the open. Running to save someone is undoubtedly commendable, but secretly meeting up with your ex and leaving your current girlfriend in a Category 5 typhoon? What then? I'm really curious to see how this unfolds. Emily, who had only suffered minor superficial injuries, soon regained consciousness. She was shocked and saddened to learn Jake would never walk again because he saved her, and she broke down crying at his bedside. Naturally, that got the guy next door too. I played my part well, the sad but quietly resilient current girlfriend. Until Jake's parents arrived from out of town. They cried as soon as they walked into the room, mourning their only son who had a bright future but was now ruined. While crying, they also scolded me. It's all your fault. Why didn't you stop him? If you'd stopped him, this wouldn't have happened. I stayed silent. After Emily's death in my last life, Jake claimed he didn't care but turned to heavy drinking for a while. His parents saw their son spiraling and turned their anger on me for stopping him from saving someone, blaming me for his state. They said I was selfish and not as selfless or kind-hearted as Emily. And if I were in danger, Emily would never have stopped Jake from saving me. Back then, I felt guilty and said nothing in my defense. But looking at the current situation, I hadn't stopped him from saving anyone this time, yet still ended up in a bad spot. Emily was crying too, apologizing while she cried. Jake's mom slapped her without a word. You left him for a better future abroad. Why couldn't you just leave for good? Why come back and string him along, causing him to end up like this? What about my son's future? You're just a curse. Jake's dad sighed heavily, tears in his eyes. Son, we told you to cut ties with this woman, but you didn't listen. You even went all the way to France to see her several times. You gave so much for her, and she puts you in this mess. It's tragic. I was quietly standing by, playing my part, but those words made me jerk my head up. Uncle, what did you say? Jake's dad looked embarrassed for a moment and clammed up, but he'd already said it, and I heard it. After getting with me, Jake often traveled abroad, claiming it was for work. Turns out he was visiting Emily, wasn't he? And his parents knew all along. I was the only one in the dark. Haha, funny. Emily, her face swollen from the slap, kneeled and cried, pleading with Jake's parents. Uncle, Auntie, Jake is like this because of me. I'm sorry. I'll stay by his side and take care of him. Saying it like that, full of emotion and righteousness, as if she wasn't the one who abandoned her long-term boyfriend for a brighter future. I glanced over at the guy next door, still sneakily filming, noticing he was focusing the camera on me. I quickly put on a heartbroken expression, tears falling as I quietly left the room. Once outside, I checked the stream. Some comments were empathetic, talking about how tragic this love story was. But some folks were more clear-headed, posting as if these jerks deserve this outcome. What about the girl next to them? She's the real victim here, betrayed by scumbags. What did she do wrong? Screw them. Let those cheaters be stuck together. Beautiful girl, you deserve better. I couldn't help but chuckle. I wiped away the tears I had to force out and walked out of the hospital with big steps. Yeah, those two were a match made in heaven. They should spend their whole lives together. I hadn't been to the hospital in days. In the meantime, Jake's parents called me a couple of times, even blaming me for not visiting him. I can only say their nerve is unbelievable. I dragged it out until Jake woke up, then I finally took my time and went to the hospital. Jake was lying in bed, pale-faced. Even in his wrecked state, his eyes were full of pain and loss. Only when he looked at Emily did they fill with softness and relief. Emily had cried for days and was still crying. It's my fault. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have. How can this be your fault? Jake wiped her tears away. As long as you're okay, what does it matter if I'm like this? Emily cried in Jake's arms, and Jake held her tight. They leaned into each other, all lovey-dovey. They were truly meant for each other. Even though I knew it wasn't great to interrupt, I walked into the room in my heels anyway. The person in the next bed, not wanting to miss the drama, grabbed their phone and started live streaming covertly. When Jake saw me, a guilty look flashed in his eyes. He instinctively let go of Emily's hand. Lily, you're here. Emily fixed her clothes, probably feeling a bit awkward. She found an excuse and left the room. Jake still tried to make excuses for himself. I just saw how upset she was, so Lily, don't take it to heart. At this point, he was still lying to me. I pinched myself secretly, forcing tears to well up, then broke up with him. Jake's expression turned ugly fast. What? Now that I'm ruined, you're just going to ditch me? I pinched myself pretty hard. It hurt so much, tears just poured out. Am I leaving you, or are you leaving me, Jake? In the 2 years we've been together, I never asked about your past love life, always trusted you. Yet how did you treat me? You'd say you were going abroad, saying it was for work, but it was to see her. The day of the typhoon, you said you were working late, but your late work was picking her up from the airport, planning to bring her to our home. Jake looked embarrassed and even a bit angry. You're overthinking it. There's nothing between us. Can you not make a scene? I'm overthinking, making a scene? I pulled out my phone and showed him Emily's Instagram. Take a good look at what she posted. Which one isn't about you? You spent birthdays with her, went on vacations with her, saw her performances, and this photo, your French kiss with her. How was that? Jake's face grew more and more troubled. With no way to argue back, he fell silent. In my past life, I didn't realize until I was dying why he hated me yet still wanted to marry me. I was an only child. My dad was the chairman of the Provincial Writers Association. My mom was a retired national-level actress, and the drama group's head wanted me to take over. Jake could gain a lot from being connected to my family for his career. Not to mention my parents doted on me, bought 3 houses in the capital, all in my name, and their future assets would go to me. Even if he hated my guts, Jake wouldn't let me go. He wanted to leech off my family till they were dust. Thinking about all this, my tone inadvertently turned cold. For her, you risked everything, even your life, to save her. I realized I could never reach you all my life. So why should I cling to you? Jake's fists clenched and unclenched. Finally, he squeezed out, I'm sorry, but could I get another chance? Now I picked up my bag and turned to leave. Before I left, I noticed the extremely excited face of the guy in the next bed. Take this juicy story and run with it. Don't let me down. As I walked out of the room, I saw Emily outside. Her expression was complicated. If Jake were still whole, the victorious other woman in her would have surely shown off to me. But Jake was worthless now. The whole package is all yours, including his useless lower half. How satisfied are you? I went back to the theater after Jake's half-body paralysis. The lead actor was replaced with someone new. Fresh blood was there. There was never a shortage. The new lead was a guy named Alex, fresh out of dance school. Alex was young, naive, good-looking, and sweet-talking, always politely calling me planning sister whenever he saw me. People naturally like beautiful things. It's instinctual. Everyone quickly bonded with Alex. After a show, while I was chatting with Alex backstage, I suddenly saw Jake coming in. Now he could only sit in a wheelchair, with Emily pushing him. He was there to handle his resignation. Emily's face twisted subtly when she saw me, a little hard to notice, showing dissatisfaction. I ignored her and Jake, continuing to chat with Alex about upcoming performance plans. Jake suddenly interrupted us. Sophia, who is he? How is he? Who he is, any of your business? My reply made Jake's face turn sour. He stared at Alex, full of undisguised hostility. Alex scratched his nose, clueless as to how he defended this person. The director then showed up. I had already told the theater folks the reason for my breakup with Jake. Everyone knew Jake had been timing me. No matter how close they were with him before, no one was fond of him now, especially the director. He was a friend of my father and always looked after me like I was his kid. He was in a funky mood for days after finding out about Jake's betrayal. If I hadn't stopped him, he'd have stormed into the hospital to tear Jake a new one by now. While handling the paperwork for Jake, the person said to him, even though he couldn't stand now, don't give up. Keep up rehab, and maybe one day you'll be back on stage. It sounded encouraging, but there was an undertone of sarcasm. After all, even the doctors had said that the chances of nerves healing were almost non-existent. The director's hollow reassurance was a real stab in the heart. After finishing his resignation paperwork, Jake didn't leave right away. He sat there watching the actors rehearse on stage. A young, energetic guy had taken his place, pouring his heart and soul into the performance. The spotlight in everyone's eyes was on him. When rehearsal wrapped, the staff gave him cheers and applause, which once were all for Jake. I took a glance at the audience and saw Jake looking pale, his hands gripping the blanket on his lap tightly. Emily looked at Jake, her eyes filled with clear guilt and pity. This version of Emily didn't have the experiences of her past life, so she didn't realize that her look was like a sharp knife for someone suffering like Jake. Jake closed his eyes for a moment and then spoke. Emily, let's go. Emily agreed and wheeled Jake away, leaving the world that used to be his behind. I smirked. I wondered if he regretted risking his life to save someone back then. As performances increased, I got even busier. On a rare day off, I finally caught a break and met up with my best friend, Clara, at a cafe. The moment we met, Clara was excited to show me a video. It was shot in a supermarket, featuring Jake's mom scolding Emily beside her. You're such a spoiled brat. You can't even tell the difference between bread flour and cornstarch. I have no idea what my son saw in you. He risked his life for you, and now our family's stuck with this bad luck. You've ruined everything. Emily gritted her teeth, looking defiant. Since birth, she had been pampered by her family, only touching piano keys, never having done chores. So how could she know such things? She was used to being pampered and rarely got scolded by her parents. But Jake's mom scolded her constantly, and she couldn't stand it. So Emily stood her ground and argued back. The two of them went at it, neither backing down, drawing a crowd. Clara was among them, grabbing the best spot to watch and film it all. She was thrilled to show it to me. Honestly, it was kind of amusing. In a past life, Jake's mom always said I wasn't as good as Emily. Now with me and Emily switching roles, she still doesn't seem satisfied. Clara leaned in close. You know that Emily chick is something else. She dumped Jake and ran abroad, and Jake still can't forget about her. Totally whipped. Yeah, he was definitely devoted. Talking about Jake now brought no feelings for me, no waves at all. If he had feelings, I was fine with letting him have them. But who knows how long the person he traded the rest of his life for would stick around. That's uncertain. One day after work at the theater, as I was about to leave, Alex suddenly appeared in front of me. He had his hands behind his back, ears a bit red, looking very suspicious. What's up? I asked. Do you have something to say? Alex hesitated for a moment, then brought his hands forward, revealing a bouquet of sunflowers, my favorite. Well, I just wanted to ask if you're free tonight. I'd like to treat you to dinner. What are you trying to confess to me? I said directly, which made Alex turn beet red. He looked at me for a long time, then nodded with red cheeks. Young guys are so naive. Unlike me, whose heart is as old and worn out as a dog's, I don't get flustered in these situations. If I were a few years younger, I'd probably say yes right then. Everyone loves pretty things, and I'm no exception. The hormones would have made me want to drop everything and dive into love. But I'm not that young girl anymore. I've lived twice and actually died once, so the passion from back then is long gone. I still appreciate beautiful people, but now, it's just for looking. I politely turned him down, watching the light fade from his eyes as he walked away sadly. After watching him leave, I turned my gaze to a shadowy corner. There was a wheelchair there. Jake had been there for quite a while. Lately, he would sneak into the theater through the back door. He often hid in unnoticed corners, looking at the able-bodied actors with envy, sometimes even jealousy, as they moved and shone on stage. That stage used to be his too. I turned away, ready to leave, but Jake called out to me. Why didn't you say yes to him? Why does it matter to you whether I did or didn't? Did you say no because you still have feelings for me? The nerve of this guy. Cheating was your choice, betrayal was yours, and you repeatedly lied to me. You're practically a bad person. Why would I bother holding on to feelings for someone like you who gave you that kind of confidence? Jake's face turned sour at my words. And why are you out here alone? Where's Emily? Jake says, dropped his head, and went silent. I knew why. In her past life, Emily lost both arms. She couldn't even take care of her basic needs. Emily was always proud of her looks and talents, but she lost all of that. She used to be like a beautiful moon in the sky, but now she's fallen into the mud. She couldn't handle the stark contrast and almost broke down. Back then, anytime she saw Jake, she'd go nuts, screaming at him about why he didn't save her. Now Jake's in the same boat as Emily was. He used to be the shining star on stage, but now he can't even stand. He can't control his bodily functions either. What he hates most are the looks he gets from people. They used to be filled with envy, admiration, and love. Now it's just disgust, disdain, pity, and mockery. Even his first love, for whom he sacrificed almost everything, gags at the sight of his incontinence. Once a golden boy, now he's a broken man. Maybe he doesn't regret saving his first love, but this dark contrast has to sting. Yet it's the path he chose, and he can't blame anyone else. Though Emily once promised she'd stick by Jake, I knew she'd leave eventually. I just didn't expect her to cut and run quite so quickly. It only took 2 months before she couldn't take it anymore. I heard she left without her luggage, sneaking out to run to the airport, bound for France. But before she got on the plane, Jake and his parents caught up with her. Jake's dad yelled at her for being ungrateful. His mom threw a fit, crying to everyone around that her son's condition was her fault and now she's abandoning him. Jake clutched Emily's clothes with all his strength, his hands shaking with the effort, his eyes bloodshot and pleading, seeming to say, "Emily, I'm like this because of you. I've lost everything. You're all I have left. How could you leave me? Do you want me stuck by your side forever?" Emily cried out, hurt and angry. "You're a shell of the man you used to be, but I'm still a normal person. I'm just 25. I'm young. I have dreams. Do you expect me to stay and take care of you forever?" Even when Jake was a promising dancer, he couldn't hold on to someone with Emily's ambitions. Without the ability to care for himself, can the mere fact that he saved her really keep her by his side? Especially when Emily values cunning over gratitude. Years ago, she didn't leave the country just to study. She ditched Jake for a rich kid. That rich kid moved on quickly, leaving her high and dry, and she suddenly remembered her loyal admirer back home. I heard all this from Clara, who's always in everybody's business. She said Jake and his family fought with Emily for a while at the airport, but in the end, they couldn't stop her from leaving. When Emily jumped on that plane without a second thought, Jake was devastated. Clara said, "Serves him right. He's getting what he deserves." Honestly, I saw it coming. After Emily left, Jake was down for a bit, keeping to himself at home. Meanwhile, the theater was doing great. I took our dance troupes to a few international competitions, and we did really well. During this time, Jake called me a bunch of times. I knew what he wanted to say, yet I didn't want to hear it, so I just blocked his number. After traveling all over, when I returned to the theater, my colleagues told me, "Sophia, he's shown up a few times, looking for you like a ghost that won't let go." After work, as I stepped out of the theater, there he was, wearing a white shirt, sitting in his wheelchair at the entrance. My eyes landed on that white shirt. I bought that as my first gift when we first started dating on a business trip to London. It was a designer piece, subtle but elegant and pricey. I thought he'd look great in it. When he got it, he thanked me but never wore it. He didn't even fold it properly, just stuffed it in the closet. Later, when I browsed Emily's Instagram, I saw a post of hers with a designer making a custom suit for my love. He looks amazing. Next to it was a picture of Jake in a suit watching the sunset with her. I remember that suit. He wore it when he got back from a trip, sent it to the cleaners after, and wouldn't let me touch it to iron it. I didn't know it was from Emily and wondered why he treasured such a cheap-looking suit. But back then, I didn't realize it wasn't about the suit. It was about who gave it to him. Like that white shirt hidden away in the closet, I was never valued. But to my surprise, he put that shirt on now, pushing his wheelchair, he rolled over. Now he could only look up at me. "Sophia, I know now I shouldn't have treated you like that. For the sake of what we had, can you give me another chance?" I stayed silent, just watching him lower his pride, begging as he lightly tugged at my sleeve, just like when he begged Emily to stay. But I felt nothing. A crowd gathered, whispering like I was some heartless villain. "Well, you've learned to use your situation to your advantage," I said. "But do you really think it's going to work?" Jake's face froze slightly, then he slowly lowered his hand. "I had a dream," he suddenly said. "In the dream, it was that stormy day again. You were trying so hard to hold on to me that you got your face cut by falling glass. She lost her hands and ended it all, and your face was scarred. You saved me, but I was disgusted by your appearance, and then I pushed you off a cliff." Remembering my past life, the hatred I'd kept buried for so long began to boil over again. I let out a cold laugh. "You only want me back because you can't handle Emily leaving, just want me as a stand-in." I fell for it once, but not again. I looked down at him, slowly leaned in close to his ear, "And what makes you think I'd give a murderer a second chance?" Jake's eyes trembled. You had that dream too?" "For me, it wasn't a dream." I stared straight into his eyes. I don't even know how many bones I broke, bled too much. It was really cold at the bottom of that cliff. You guess how long I struggled after you left before I finally died. Jake's face turned pale, bit by bit. He muttered, "So that's why you didn't save me this time." I nodded. "Yep." His eyes turned red, tears flowing down without stopping. He shook uncontrollably, apologizing over and over. But what good are apologies? I glanced at his legs, now wasting away, and said calmly, all I can say is you deserve the fate you're in now. I gave him back his own words. I turned and walked towards the garage. Jake tried to follow, but there were steps leading to the garage, and his wheelchair couldn't get down. He could only shout my name, initially pleading cautiously, then nearly desperate, and finally screaming in rage. He was completely broken, but I felt incredibly calm. Not looking back, I knew Jake wouldn't just accept it, and sure enough, he didn't. He posted a video online, showing his once hidden disabled body. He talked about how glorious his past was and how miserable his present is. The reason for his injury, he saved a girl. He portrayed her as ungrateful, just leaving without any thanks. Of course, he didn't forget to mention me, talking about how his ex-girlfriend just turned and left without hesitation when he became useless. Jake hoped to use online opinions to guilt Emily and me. But Emily's abroad, and nothing from back home could affect her. As for me, I didn't need to defend myself because Jake, being the fool he is, didn't know he'd already been exposed on someone else's camera before. He thought any ends would bash the gold digger in me. Little did he know his video was quickly met with a flood of insults. Cheater, blaming your ex for leaving after you cheated. You brought this on yourself. Blaming others is laughable. Is his internet down? Doesn't he know we've already seen his true colors? I bet Jake was bewildered seeing those comments. Thanks to him paying to boost his video, an old live video by another creator that once spread in a small circle suddenly went viral, rocketing to trending topics, making sure everyone knew the story. His plan to use online outrage against me failed spectacularly, tying him up in his own web, buried under insults. He had to delete the video and lay low for a long while. His parents did come looking for me a few times. At first, they pleaded pitifully, begging me to go back. Later, they resorted to cursing and threatening, even disrupting our theater shows. Eventually, after the head of the theater and actors couldn't take it anymore, the police were called, and they were detained for 10 days, finally calming down. Jake showed up again 3 months later. He was a completely changed, pitiful wreck, gaunt and ghostly. He constantly lurked in the shadows, watching me around the theater. Clara noticed too when she came by. She shivered, touching her goosebumps. Geez, he's creepy, Sophia. I've heard some people develop mental issues after major accidents. Who knows what he might do? Be careful. He looks real spooky right now. I chuckled and assured her. Even without his disability, Jake was a dark person. Such people are always dangerous. How could I not be on guard? I started being cautious, avoiding isolated places, even moved to a new place with extra locks and several cameras. But I never expected Jake to be so gutsy. During a theater rehearsal, a fire suddenly broke out in the backstage area. When people discovered it and tried to escape, they found both front and back doors locked with new keys. No one knew who or when they were locked. The director had already called 911, but while waiting, the fire spread to the front stage. In the thick smoke, screams erupted. The director calmed others, and a few of us decided to scatter and grab fire extinguishers from the hydrants. But when I ran down the hallway by the back door, I saw Jake. Around us, cries and screams continued, but his face was blank, indifferent even. My consciousness clicked into place. Did you set this fire? I did. I can't stand dance or have a future anymore. Why should I be a ruined man while they get to walk rosy paths? His face twisted, gaze hard on me. If you had stopped me back then, how would I have ended up like this? Other men make mistakes too. Why nail me to this shame cross? Why not forgive me? Why hate me so deeply, Sophia? You're just like them. You all deserve to die. How ridiculous. You killed me so brutally and have the nerve to ask why I don't forgive you? Just because your life's ruined doesn't mean you should ruin everyone else's. Ruin me? What difference is there between someone like him and a beast? I noticed a set of keys resting on his legs. As I got closer to him, I said, "Do you know why I can't forgive you? Because you didn't just kill me back then, you also killed our child." Jake, who was hysterical just a moment ago, was suddenly stunned. Child? Yeah, it's been 2 months. I calmly told him everything. I planned to tell you this happy news at the end of our honeymoon, but I never got the chance because you killed me. You killed both me and our child. Someone like you doesn't deserve anyone's forgiveness. By the time I said this, I was right in front of Jake. He stared at me blankly. He could have had a happy family, the three of us living a beautiful life, but he destroyed all of it with his own hands. The smoke was starting to spread. While he was still dazed, I reached for the keys. But the next moment, Jake's left hand, which had been hidden under the blanket, suddenly swung out, holding a knife, ready to stab me. It's all your fault. You forced me into this. Give back everything you owe me. We were too close, and a sudden outburst caught me off guard. I was prepared to take the blow just to grab the keys, but then someone pushed me away with force, and another hand knocked the knife away. I looked up at Alex, who had just saved me. Sophia, you go unlock the door. I'll check the second and third floors to see if anyone's left behind. I nodded quickly and watched him go upstairs. Jake's veins bulged. He furiously maneuvered his wheelchair towards me, trying to snatch the keys. But the wheelchair got stuck on clutter, flipping over violently. Jake lay on the ground, trapped under the wheelchair, squirming like a helpless creature. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't free his paralyzed lower body from underneath it. Smoke billowed around, and flames crept closer. The heat turned Jake's face ghastly pale, and he reached out to me. Sophia, the fire is coming. Pull me out of here. I laughed as I stepped back. Jake, people like you aren't worth saving. With that, I turned and ran. Jake's cries were desperate. Sophia, save me! Sophia! His shouts echoed one after another as I kept running forward, not looking back. As the fire was about to reach the main entrance, I sprinted over and opened the door. Alex also came down with two staff members he found on the second floor. After escaping the theater, the director, hearing from Alex and me that Jake was responsible, was furious and cursed, pounding his thighs. Cursing, he suddenly paused. Where's Jake? Indeed, where was Jake? When the rescue team arrived, they put out the fire and pulled out a charred body from inside. In this fire, Jake was the only fatality. When Jake's parents heard the bad news, they were heartbroken and came to the theater with banners demanding an explanation. The enraged director immediately presented backstage surveillance footage. The footage showed Jake bringing gasoline into the backstage several times while we were busy with rehearsals, eventually tossing a lit lighter. You've got some nerve asking me for an explanation. I should be asking you for one. Our lit lighter? You've got some nerve asking me for an explanation. I should be asking you for one. Our theater's losses you must compensate. Jake's dad was dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Jake's mom resorted to her old antics of making a fuss, but this wasn't something complaints could solve. They had to sell their house to pay the debts and ended up living in a cheap rental. After the theater relocated and was rebuilt, my life got back on track. Though I declined several times, Alex kept pursuing me. I'd lost that youthful passion, focusing more on reality now, but this silly guy gets braver with every setback, like he's got a thick skull. He won't give up unless he hits a dead end, and even then he'd break through it to keep going. I talked about him with Clara over hot pot, saying, "Does he also want to eat up everything I have like Jake did?" Clara burst into laughter. You didn't know? Alex's family owns several public companies. He doesn't need your little bit of money. My bad, turns out there was a real big shot right by my side. Honestly, I planned to be single and fabulous forever, but a change happened a year later. Another typhoon hit. This one was just as strong as the one a year ago. Unfortunately, I was stuck at the theater due to work when the typhoon reached its peak. The window on the second floor shattered. Alex arrived just in time to witness the glass explosion. He instinctively shielded me and guided me to a safe corner. Once we reached safety, I noticed his back was covered in cuts from the glass, but he didn't care about himself. He was primarily concerned if I was hurt. At that moment, I thought maybe we should be together. Despite being hurt before, deep down, I still hope for someone who genuinely prioritizes me. So far, Alex seemed to be doing okay. After the typhoon passed, I accepted Alex's seventh proposal. On the day I agreed, the silly guy gathered his friends and had them all excitedly calling me sis-in-law, a childish behavior, but I didn't dislike it. Not long after, Clara and I went out to eat. Emily was his first girlfriend. I heard she went abroad after they broke up. How come she's here? I paused, surprised to hear about her again. Clara took a sip of her wine and started gossiping with me. I have a friend who's in the study abroad circle, and she's a classmate of Emily's. She said after Emily went back to France, she hooked up with a rich guy old enough to be her dad. She became his mistress. Then the guy's wife found out and beat her up. In the fight, Emily injured her hand really bad, like the tendons were messed up. She couldn't play piano anymore. And she lost her baby at 6 months. At this point, Clara showed me a picture. It was Emily when she first got back home. She looked pale and worn out, her eyes empty, totally different from her once vibrant self. I sighed. Even if she got another chance, without that typhoon, she couldn't escape the fate of her hand getting ruined. Maybe it was karma in a way. After hanging out with Clara for a while, I called Alex to pick me up. Alex's voice was super gentle over the phone. Sophia, hang in there a bit. I'm in line buying boba tea with ice. Nope, it's not good for you to have cold drinks these days. Give it a few days, and I'll get you 2 cups. Clara overheard and squealed, covering her mouth. He makes me want to cry. He remembers your cycle. I laughed and said, this little brother is really considerate. After all that's happened, the past will eventually fade. We just need to love ourselves. In the end, we'll meet someone who's worth it. After all that's happened, the past will eventually fade. We just need to love ourselves. In the end, we'll meet someone who's worth it.